welcome back to Cast Me to Hell with me, Seb.
And with me, Robbie.
And this week we are with you straight from the cinema, but not straight from before the release.
Not this time.
No, we are a couple of days past the sell-by of this one. But we are here with Heart Eyes.
We are here pox-free because, the last episode I was quite ill for, and now that's gone. The coughing is gone.
Illness and the coughing
The illness and the coughing is gone. We're all good. So far, we're all good.
We won't be like literally coughing in your face the entire episode, or just losing our track, or our minds weren't even in the right place. I think for the last ones.
But as it's a Valentine's kind of film, it's important that the person is disease free.
Yes, love is in the air.
Love is in the air at this point.
And we are bringing you a rom-com slasher kind of hybrid, I'd say, is the best way for this.
We both suspected the involvement of Christopher Landons.
We did.
And I believe he's an executive producer.
I think the story and the written by he has one of the credits. There was about 3 writers on both, thing. So there's a few different cooks in the kitchen on this one.
Different cooks. But they didn't spoil the broth.
No, they didn't.
The broth is good. The broth kind of reminded me of early 2000s slashers,
It did, yeah. Well, just to be clear, we are going to avoid spoilers for the first 10 minutes or so. We will tell you when we are up with that. So if you are completely want to avoid spoilers, you haven't seen this yet, whatever you're doing, whether you're waiting to see it in the coming weeks in the cinema, or whether you're waiting for that digital release or whatever you wait for.
Straight to home streaming.
Yes, or that VHS copy that will one day come.
It's coming. I've heard it's coming.
Then you can avoid the spoilers here and then come back and listen to the rest whenever you want to. But you must come back and listen to the rest.
You must come back. You have to. And you have to hit that subscribe button, leave us a lovely review. It is Valentine's period. The day's gone. So what better way of showing your love for your 2 favourite podcasters, or your 2 most, 2 podcasters you can tolerate, by leaving us a lovely review and hitting that subscribe button. Straight off the bat, I think it was interesting to go into this not knowing really much about it. I kind of suspected it was going to be this kind of take on a rom-com. I wasn't sure that I didn't think there would be quite so much humour in it, because it is quite loaded with humour.
I think that's where the Christopher Landon part came from, where we thought it was, because his previous works in this Freaky and Happy Death Day, those all had very kind of high kind of mixture of comedy. Sometimes they veered even closer to your 12A or your PG-13 than maybe this one, which I think goes full for the gore.
Well, I found out it was an 18 yesterday, I think, or the day before, when we were kind of checking what time it was on, that kind of thing. And then I realised it was an 18, and I'm glad they went for that, because I believe that it's doing quite well in the cinemas. I think it's on track to make more money in its second weekend than it has in its first.
Yeah, I think because in America they released it the week
before Valentine's.
Whereas, and there's one thing that pops in my head the whole time is that this is a very date movie. If you want a horror date movie, I know, like we just said, there is a gore, and yes, there is a high gore level. But also, for people that want to go on a date, this is the closest you can get to basically, watching a rom-com with your partner, while also, because it does it sticks very closely to the rom-com structure.
Yes.
And it doesn't, to be fair, it doesn't actually try to undermine that completely with horror. It still sticks with it, it just adds the horror into it. And they have melded it together quite nicely here, where I did feel at first I was for some people they might have been when is that, when are we getting back to the horror? Because there is an extended period at the beginning of this film when you're kind of mainly just setting up the characters in a bit more rom-com fashion. Yeah. The old meet cutes.
Oh, you got to meet cutes. Yeah,
the old meat cubes.
My meat cubes. Touching on the gore kind of briefly, I was surprised at. I'm glad they went for the 18 certificate. They really, I won't say that they went kind of balls to the wall, hell for leather on it, but it was a very kind of satisfying, You know, it was a good itch to scratch. There was a moment, particularly in the opening, where I was like, oh, they're going to cut away here, because it seems like they're going to cut away.
Yeah.
It's very cut away. But no, you get to see the full kill, and it's great. I think we looked at each other like, Christ.
I was going to say, it is one of those like early ones. Like the early death is, you know, the opening is a fun little, without going into any of those bits, but it is a fun little opening. But the main kind of death that we build to is one when you're like, a lot of other horrors, and to be honest, even because this is directed by Josh Rubin, not Chris Landon.
Yeah.
But if we were doing a Chris Landon one, to be honest, it would have cut away, because he doesn't always
Not
go
always.
for the full on freak. He was a little bit closer to it, but he didn't always go for it. But Josh Rubin here apparently takes his ideas, but also goes, you know what? No, I want to see it.
Yeah.
You know, and more often than not, we see it. We could do the cutaways unless it's kind of plot based, I guess.
Yeah, and I think there's, you know, there are a few kills that are kind of spattered throughout, and it does the traditional thing of some kills are obviously a lot gorier than others.
Yeah.
It never kind of leans into like terrifier levels of gore, but it's a good level.
But it keeps it to a fun thing. It's not
gratuitous.
like, it doesn't feel gratuitous. No, it doesn't feel over the top. And often, sometimes when it is over the top, it is kind of in a kind of very over the top fun kind of, or this was on purpose. We're doing this extremely long pause on like someone's death or someone's, you know, I'm just going to say decapitation out of context.
Yeah.
Like, we stick very long on these subjects because it kind of plays into something that was joked about or mentioned earlier kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it has a few kind of those where it kind of nicely like plays into kind of, it also sometimes plays into nicely into like things you'd expect in a rom-com that then also kind of pop up in a weirdly horror fashion.
Yeah.
Or just jokes that reply to things that might also be in the bedroom, and actually now we're joking about them based on blood.
Yeah, so it balances it quite well, I think. I mean, speaking about the humour kind of specifically, it is that kind. It is very Christopher Landon, borderline kind of Gen Z humour, if that makes sense. Like some of it's
quite taking the piss out of the kind of Gen Z kind of, I think, in a way. Like
some of it's a little bit, but then
some of it's very, but then some of it feels very like you're taking the piss out of something you kind of are at the same time.
Yeah, it's an odd one because I think there's a lot of the characterization feels a bit Gen Z. Like there was a moment where they're talking about like sugar daddies and that kind of stuff, and it's in the kind of opening of the film, but as it's establishing them, and it is that kind of like it feels very modern, and it feels like it's for that kind of like maybe they've just turned 18 to like 24 audience. You know?
It's definitely, it's got a target audience here. Like you boomers out there.
The boomers are too old. We are now out of that. You know, it's that thing of like when you've got to fill in your age on a certificate when you've got to do it on a. See, I'm just showing my age. Sometimes I say like, I'm going to email Seth. I've fucking never emailed you.
Yeah. I mean, it's
that thing. Of, like,
it does have those moments where, it has some of those moments when you're a bit like, oh, okay, this is very like that, and then at the same time, it also has moments when it kind of takes the mick out of that, and I think there is parts that both people could enjoy. If you completely hate that kind of thing, it's not that like there's completely, as I said, there's quite an extended part early on in the film where it is quite about the rom-com-y part of it. So if you weren't fully into that part, then you might not be fully into a kind of extended part of the film. And it also parts when there are times when it leans into the humour and goes like quite over the top, and then kind of pulls itself back a little bit, and there is at times the balance shifts a little bit. I would say one thing to do with the main character's workplace, I think, was a bit like at times like, I feel like you're pushing this into a different kind of humour than you've been showing off the rest of the time. Yeah, like that, and it has some of those moments. And just talking of the kills that we mentioned, obviously there are times when you're kind of like in this extended rom-com part when you haven't really had any death or murder for a while. You've had some detective stuff, things like that. When you hear about these other murders that happened, and you kind of feel like you could have gone off and showed that. Yeah, I feel like that could have. We have a few mentions of like it's not spoiler because you don't see anything, a spa death. And it's kind of comes midway through what feels like quite a longer section, when it could, like, if you just showed like a 2-minute like slash of something, it would have just maybe just kept that kind of horror going.
Kept it going, because it's odd because the opening felt a lot more extended than I expected it to be. Yeah, it was a bit more It was a bit longer than that, and then it got into, like you said, I wouldn't say it was like a lull because it's the setting up and it's the traditional kind of rom-com stuff. So they have the meet cute.
And as a rom-com, it is like literally, if you took all the horror elements away, I'd say that this is it would be a fairly good, kind of, you could happily watch that Netflix rom-com anytime. I mean, like, it would work quite nicely as a kind of rom-com. You've got Mason Gooding, not Mason Gooding Jr., but you got Mason Gooding, who was, most people will know from Scream, who was pretty much one of the strongest parts of the most recent Scream films. He's a very charismatic guy.
He is, and it's really weird because I was watching it and I was like, oh, it's Scream. I completely buy you as like a 18-year-old kid. And then I watched this and I'm like, yeah, I completely buy you as like a 35-year-old professional. Like somehow he looked like double his age.
It's the Letterman jacket.
It must be the Letterman jacket.
Just put a Letterman jacket on any 40-year-old and suddenly it's like, you're 18, are you?
It's the Tobin Bell with the hat backwards. Like it worked for him. But I mean, I keep wanting to call him Mason Gooding Jr. as well, as if Jr. is like part of the last name.
Yeah, it's Mason Gooding is obviously the second main, and Olivia Holt is the main.
And they're both.
And I'm saying their names because, as always, I always forget what the main characters' names are.
And one was Jay, I believe.
Of course, Jay. Yes, he was Jay.
And hers was.
See, we're terrible at remembering a main character's name.
It's
not that she was forgettable. She was very good.
They both were good. They both had a lot of chemistry about them. Ali.
There you go.
They both had like a real good level of chemistry. I think Mason Gooding. I want to say Mason Gooding Jr. I think Mason Gooding's quite viable as like a leading man. I think he plays a very different character to what he was in Scream. Yeah, and he plays both really well. He has these moments where he's quite a lovable character in this, I found.
Yeah.
And
even in Scream, he's cocky but lovable, kind of in that way. I think that's why he became like the Dewey character. Maybe because it was like you kind of like him, even though he's a bit odd at times.
He's a bit odd. Whereas in this, I thought his delivery with a lot of the humour was pretty spot on a lot of the times.
Yeah, when it comes to most of the time when it came to Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding, when they were doing something that kind of had a bit of a tweak of humour to it, I'd say most of the time theirs landed.
They were good.
It was some of the outside characters I say that a little bit less, like where it didn't always land quite as much, because we also have two like more like veteran film or like horror in you've got Devon Sawyer obviously from Final Destination, Chucky TV series and stuff like that, and then you've got Jordana Brewster, obviously I'm just Fast and Furious. She's in lots. She has been in other things, but Fast and Furious family. That's all that comes to my head. As Hobbs and Shaw.
I fucking love that joke. Hobbs and Shaw.
And that was a bit of a spoiler because that's actually a joke in the film.
Well, I didn't know that she was in Fast and Furious. Yeah. Because I've only ever seen 3, which happened to be 1, 2, and the most recent one, and I don't know what was happening in them. So I didn't know that she was in it.
To catch up on your Fast and
Furious.
I just
like that. I just found that joke really funny. Yeah,
it was very. When you get to the setup of the said joke, without going any deeper into it, it's quite a funny joke.
Yeah.
But I would say that Devon Sawyer is one who's not so much like he only appears in a couple of scenes, to be honest.
Which is a shame.
Yeah, I felt like he could have done more. Although he talked about the humour was more. I think it was he was one where he had kind of a humour that was kind of coming out, but it oddly, I don't think it flowed at the times with the rest of them. The only one I noticed is like he was good as his character in other ways, but the humour parts that they tried to kind of push upon him didn't quite work for me.
No, because I think, they kind of
neither did hers either, though, to be fair. They're back and forth. They tried to do like a humorous back and forth as them both as detectives.
But it
didn't really meld. It kind of like that was kind of one of those first bits in the film when it was like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that's not working.
No, and I would have liked that to be played out a bit more.
Yeah,
because it felt like, not to give any kind of, or to try and avoid spoilers, but it felt like the detective angle wasn't kind of fully explored out. I was
we only had like 3 scenes of them, really.
Yeah.
If you think about 3 main scenes of those two together. And it felt like that was going to be like a long-running thing throughout the film. Maybe there was more to it that they just removed, but it didn't feel like a fleshed-out detective kind of subplot.
And it kind of felt, I don't know if you picked this up, but it kind of felt like they were like, are they doing a whodunit? Or are they not doing a whodunit? Oh, we're back on a whodunit. You know, it kind of felt almost as if it couldn't stick to a lane. So I feel like it spun the kind of rom-com plate really well, and it spun the horror mostly.
Yeah.
But when it came to like,
I think this is to kind of wrap up the spoiler-free part. I think it is just to say that the only I would say in terms of that is where I'd say for the most part I thought the rom-com part was really good, so much so that I think, you know, a lot of people could take their like girlfriend or wife or who they'd actually be like, oh, actually I'm kind of into this because I enjoy, even if they don't like the horror part, they might get enough into the rom-com that they'll be like, actually, there's quite a bit of sex humour and stuff like that in there that I think some people would like. The only bit kind of thing is that this is, I would say that for a comparison of kind of the horror angle, it's kind of maybe at times gorier, but it is kind of Scream. And there's a little bit of a kind of...
A little bit, yeah.
There's a little bit of a third act kind of where it's kind of like people might be mixed on where it's going.
Yes, I could agree with you
kind of thing. I think that's the only part where people might be a bit more like... It both follows like the classic structure of the rom-com, but also follows the classic structure almost of the slasher, where you have to have this... And with a rom-com where you have to have the classic kind of, will they, by the end, is there something that's going to stop them from being together?
Yeah.
And then the same way in a slasher, you have the classic, do we have to have a fake out before we have a main act finale? And that's kind of as far as I can push it with us. But that's the only bit, outside of a few bits that tonally didn't work for me, that was the only bit where I was like, yeah, it worked fun for me, and I enjoyed it enough. But I could definitely see some people being a bit like, that doesn't quite work. Even though they do try to parody it a little bit in some way, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, I'd recommend people go and watch it. I think, like you said, I think people who are there for a gory good time will get that. There are some... there's quite a good handful of kills. I think they pace them mostly pretty well. I agree. There's the kind of the ones that they mention on the news reports. It would have been nice to see them a little bit, even if it's just maybe some quick cuts. Yeah. But then, as you do, there are some more kind of gorier kills where things are lingered on, and it is a bit of like, oh Christ. So I think like if you were going into it looking for a bit of gore, you get that. If you weren't really into horror, but you were like, I maybe want to see the rom-com angle and I want to see a bit of humour, I think you'll find mostly a happy medium. You'll come out of it thinking, that was good. I don't think it was particularly...
I think it is. It's right in that lane of like, it's not like an all-time classic, but it's a fun one. If you like previous Christopher Landon based ones, then I think this would be right in your ballpark. If you like a lot of these genre mashing ones, then I think this would be right in your ballpark. And I'd say this is one of the better of the ones where I've found that they've been a very mixed bag of the ones we've had in recent years.
Well, what was that one that we did before Christmas? It's a Wonderful Knife.
It's a Wonderful Knife.
Go and check the episode if you haven't. A little cheap plug. But we very much said in that your enjoyment of the film will depend on how much mileage you get out of the premise. If you're if you think a rom-com horror, that sounds like dog water, you might find it pretty good. But if you find that the premise is something that gets you biting, you're probably going to love it. Yeah. It's that thing.
And it's that. And people who've been waiting for a Valentine, like another Valentine film, you know what I mean?
We have covered Valentine. If you want to go and listen to that, too cheap plugs.
No, I'm not saying it's as classic as that David Boreanaz, how the fuck you say his name?
Boreanaz? Yeah. Angel.
Yeah. Angel.
Mr.
It's not as, I had to use the hardest name of all the people. I could have said Denise Richards or some shit like that. I had to go with that. I can't say it's quite as much of a cult classic as that kind of thing, but it could be one day, and it's a fun date night movie, I would say. Yeah. So check it out, whether it's whatever format you are. We're going to go into spoilers now.
We will. So I will remind you before to please hit that subscribe button and leave us a lovely review. And then go and watch the film, see what you think of it. Make sure you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. And then when you have seen it, come and join us as we muse and we discuss the spoilers of the film. And we will now give you a little countdown. We know that they like listening, and we keep them teasing. You've got to keep. That's the thing about romance. You've got to keep them teasing and in anticipation.
Romance is building.
Romance is building.
It's like you're waiting for the day. You're waiting for the will they won't they with me and Rob.
And
you're waiting for that day. We'll be teasing you till the final episode.
We're either fucking or we're fighting. one of them's guaranteed to happen, and you've got to hear it live on air.
We will do it live on air. Me chasing down to the airport to get that final 1:11.
1:11, or killing me. Like Mark Chapman.
It's one or the other. That's what I mean. I don't know what way it's going yet.
No, we don't know.
Either way, you'll be hearing thrusting.
There'll be thrusting and screams,
wetness.
And
that's all you'll hear. You won't know how it ends until you hear the news report.
It fades to black. It's
either someone was fucking in the airport or someone was slashing in the airport. But that's what it'll end on.
That's how it ends. So we will give you a little countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Rob hung on the film.
I hung on.
It was a rom-com, so of course midway through he felt like that's what you do on a date.
That's what you do.
He assumed it was a date, so he was like, I must present myself.
We always go for a date episode about two friends having a date,
it confused him when it got too much into the rom-com.
Yeah, when it got too much.
She was like, do I need to get my penis out?
I assume you watch them with your penis out.
I present.
Yeah, and that's the twist of the show here, because you thought we were going to say Mason Gooding hands Don, but no.
That's too easy, because you want to see Mason Gooding hands Don.
You don't want to see mine. I was doing a Pee Wee Herman.
Yeah, I was going to say, if we said Mason Gooding hands Don, people are already trying to book tickets.
People are going to that film, And here he hangs Don. It's like Thundergun.
Yeah.
Handsome
off.
Man.
They're going.
We're going.
Right, spoilers. So we're just we're gonna select a few favourite moments throughout the film, trying to peek upon. This is your standard slasher. Now we've already kind of set up about the rom-com kind of element. It's a nice meet cute in a restaurant, in a coffee Starbucksy kind of whatever you'd call it. A nice little. They've ordered the same drink. They have a little interaction.
They bang heads.
And it all is, and she makes him bleed.
Yeah.
Those nice things. And then we get the kind of, oh wait, you're actually the guy that's meant to replace me at my job, maybe.
My kind of new boss.
Yeah, and oh no, we've got that kind of thing. And that's your meet go. We're not really here to sum up the rom-com part for you. So that's kind of the setup. Basically, they say they're going to go on a dinner date to discuss, work and how can we do this, when really he's already in love with her. He appears as though he's already head over heels, and he's already thinking about showering her roses, making that sweet love, whereas she's so focused obviously on the fact that she thinks she might lose her job. She's not thinking about that. So there you go, that's you've got into the two mind frames of a woman and a man, and she's thinking about the tasks to do, he's thinking about banging,
he's thinking about slamming and banging.
That pretty much sums up, I think, men and women.
That sums up men and women. She has also been recently gone through a breakup.
Yes.
And her ex-partner has now moved on.
You've got the scrolling, the stalking on Instagram of her old boyfriend, and he moves around mysteriously to different cities doing his job.
He does. Yes,
and he happens to have been in the same one that Heart Eyes. Killer.
I think it was quite a good setup. I mean, I quite liked the idea of this killer who comes on Valentine's Day. Like a lot of people, how he kills them. But I really liked the opening. I thought the opening was great.
Yeah. To get to the slasher.
I knew we were going to open with a kill, but what I didn't realise is just kind of how they were going to go into it, how long it was going to be.
Yeah.
They make fun of this couple kind of.
It's your classic Instagram. They're literally they're proposing, but it all has to be very set up.
It's all got to be filmed.
Man hiding in the distance. He's got a camera in one hand, his penis in the other.
He's doing the Alfred Hitchcock,
but it's heavily implied.
It's heavily implied. I mean, that's what you do anyway. That's what the best directors do. And it was a good setup. And then, like I said, we get to the kill, where the woman's the last one standing, and she climbs into this kind of weird contraption.
I think it's a juicer. It's for strawberry, because they're on a strawberry farm. Some kind of farm, out of season, because it's all the fruit's gone, but it looked like a strawberry kind of
like
farm.
some kind of compressor.
Which I think is why we've got the idea of the blood links to the liquid that's inside the barrels, is like the red strawberry juices and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, she tries to hide from him. Like, we've got, obviously, the camera guy gets a knife through the camera into the eye. Head. You've got the boyfriend gets an arrow through the head. Yeah. Nice, like, bled down. And then we get, like, a nice kind of chase, and we've got her kind of acting like she's the bee's knees of, like, you ain't going to get me because I'm too good for this. And
this is my pissed off bride.
And again, it's an odd kind of, like, it is one of those things, actually, to say, like, the humour kind of thing, where the humour we get in this is quite heightened, I'd say. Yeah. Some of the humour she's saying about the whole, like, my boyfriend, I've been waiting for years for this, and my boyfriend, she didn't really give a fuck about her actually being dead. Her now fiancé is dead.
Well, he gets an arrow through the head, and then when she calls, he answers.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? What the fuck? Well, you wouldn't answer. You know what's going on there.
Yeah. But she's literally, like, she's more bothered about the fact that the Heart Eyes has just basically murdered her, could have been, like, Instagram photos.
Yeah.
then she is about the actual person filling the role. So you're not that great at it. As they get inside, they get the security guard who gets a nice blade to the head. But it all builds this thing. The nice thing is that I think they know that most people in the audience sit there are like, yeah, I don't really care about this lass. Like, she comes across a bit like a bit of a bitch.
Well, I think it's interesting that a lot of the characters do come across as being very vapid.
Yeah.
Like, you have her friend who's got this sugar daddy, and then you've got, like...
Actually, just to say what's in my mind, that's one thing. I was waiting for it felt like a setup for a joke that never got revealed.
Yes.
I was waiting for who's the sugar daddy.
That's what I was waiting for.
I was like, who is the sugar daddy? And they make a joke early in the film about that there's no way that he could be, like, Heart Eyes because he's got too arthritic. So, to be honest, that was towards the end. That was in my head going, it's going to be an old dude it's going to be like
something like that, yeah,
or something, or we're just going to have some random celebrity cameo just for one scene, just to be like, there it is, like, I was about to say Bruce Willis. That's really
fucking hell. Yeah, that's really bad. It's Bruce Willis.
I was like thinking of a guy who's like in the middle, and for some reason my mind went to Bruce Willis. I apologise.
Yes,
he could not be.
I know he's listening to this,
but I don't think it would be funny. I think it would be extremely sad.
I know he's listening to this. He's deeply disappointed in you.
Listening to this.
You're nearly crying. Yeah. That's really
because I'm trying not to say the follow-up to that. Like, he's listening to this. I was going to say,
don't even go there.
It's too far.
Don't go. Not for Mr. Bruce Willis. He sacrificed himself in Armageddon so that you could live. And he was dead.
That's historical fact.
And he was dead already before that, The Sixth Sense. So he was dead and he sacrificed.
And he got to Alan Rickman before the cancer did.
Yes.
See, I'm in a mean mood.
It's that 1/3 of beer.
I'm fighting against.
You're fighting your demons.
The rom-com here.
The demons are winning.
I apologise to Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman fans.
And them themselves. They were kings. They are kings.
They are kings. Well, one of them still is.
I was thinking, like, when you had to take your glasses off. Fucking hell.
I've worked myself up into too much of there we go.
Kind of stupid.
That was interesting.
Yes.
What the hell were we talking about?
We were talking about who was going to be the old man.
The sugar daddy.
Daddy. I was thinking, like, somebody not like that, like classic rom-com, like Colin Firth or Hugh Grant.
That's what that came across, because my mind, Hugh Grant would have been an excellent choice.
Hugh Grant would have been great. But
my mind for some reason went to Harrison Ford and then Bruce Willis. I was like, Harrison Ford would never do this. Bruce Willis. And
two people famously
never have done.
Yeah, two people famous for their rom-coms. Yeah, of course. But I thought that was a joke coming.
Yeah, it was a setup. I mean, unless there was something at the very end, like we had some kind of credit scenes, because I didn't see anything popping up.
No.
But that was the only thing I was like, they're saving it for the sequel.
Yeah.
But you've got that kind of not the vapid characters. Like there's quite a lot of them outside. I'd say like our two main characters, to be honest, are probably the only ones that don't come
the two main
across as vapid characters.
Because even when she meets her ex and the new partner, and they have that kind of like awkward exchange. The they're like, oh, it's got to be a double date, and then the spa people died. You know, we knew them. I played racquetball with them or whatever it is, paddle fucking tennis now. And then he's like, oh, okay, well, we're not going to waste the reservation.
He kept the reservation. They died today.
Yeah, they died today. And there is that, you know, that kind of thing that goes through a lot of the characters, and then you have her boss who's a bit of a prick.
Yeah. I do think that's a little bit of the rom-com kind of playing on there, where if you look at a lot of rom-com, it normally is like the two main characters surrounded, and normally they then surround them with these eccentric characters, you know. You've got your main ones, and then you've got like Melissa McCarthy just to be there to make fart jokes at the same time. You know what I mean? Like basically, like you've got those kind of actors who are around. Like there's the good-looking one. These are the good-looking mains. These are the good-looking. And then next to them, you've got your standard average-looking. You've got your Steve Buscemi standing there. Steve Buscemi. You know what I mean? Like you've got lots of people who are always cast as like the sidekick. Yeah, not the actual.
You got Jack Black. You know,
back in the day, you would have got a Jack Black.
You would have got the Jack Black, the humorous, you know, unconventionally kind of good looking, but not conventional. Yeah. He's not going to take any eyes away from Mr. Hugh Grant or Mr. Colin Firth, you know.
I just literally figured all the list of rom-com guys now, like all of the random actors who are like, they were actually they're like bigger now, but like you've had like a million, like you've got like
McConaughey.
You know, Matthew McConaughey, but then next to him in one of his, he had like Bradley Cooper was his like eccentric side guy, or Charlie Day has appeared as several things as like the side guy. No, he's not your leading man, but he's the eccentric weirdo that hangs out with the guy that's or like Catherine Hahn or Judy Greer, like those kind of ones. Like they're always like the bridesmaid, never the bride.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, you know.
But but that I think that's what it somewhat is played. Like they always tend to be surrounded by like horrible exes or like horrible characters, bosses. You know, bosses that are like either like horrible or very like over the top and things like that. So I feel like whereas we've got a lot of like Mason Gooding and Olivia who are kind of pointing out like that's a really weird fit. Like in that scene, you've got him there like
that's weird.
Well, that's okay. Yeah, so you kept and now you're going on a date. Your friends just got massacred. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
and that's kind of that spa scene that we talked about. That like we were like. And because we also get that, it would have again, I feel like added more to it if we had got that spa scene. Like that sounds like an interesting kill. Like a spa's got loads of things that could be like fun to do, kind of thing.
But it also sounds like it's a good moment, even if they just did a minute or 2 minutes of peppering in that horror, because it does feel like it's not until they have dinner. And then she's locked out of her apartment. And there was one of the great laughs that I got. And I don't know what exactly kind of humour it is, you know, but it's that great bit where they're going to smash into the window, you know, and he's like, no, because you've got to get glass in your hand. I'll do it. And then he goes, see, like, that's good. And then he's like, that's not good. Yeah. And there's the blood in there. And that was good. And they got a big laugh from everyone.
Yeah, that's classic, that like kind of rom-com. Actually, like... And that's the thing. This also, to be fair, isn't like a shittier one. I'd say that the quality here is like if I was just watching this as a rom-com, these two actually have quite good chemistry.
Oh, they got really good chemistry.
And like those two as the main ones, as we said in our spoiler-free part, like they're actually like when they kind of make jokes or make observations about others, it's probably some of the funnier parts in the film. So it's actually one of those parts when you're actually like, I actually would have watched this rom-com. If this wasn't a killer, I probably could have happily like watched the rom-com.
Because they have that chemistry, and they do a lot of the legwork of the film in terms of the characterization and moving things forward. But it's good. But touching on, you don't really get any bits of horror. You get the really good bit that I liked with the taxi driver and those two in the back.
And kind of start. Before it starts.
But then there's the bit with the dildo, you know, and it's quite funny, and you're like, all right, this is good. And then when she opens the cupboard and Heart Eyes is in there, and she just fucking chucks it in his head. There's moments like it bounces off. There's moments of that I find you get in a lot of these Christopher Landon produced films, where it's these moments of kind of like physical comedy that aren't exaggerated. Like you could watch that and be like, she just threw something out, or you could be like, that's actually really funny if you think about it. And then so I found like that was a good moment. But that's kind of when the the horror kind of comes back in.
Yeah, because we haven't got we kind of went off on a strange tangent away there because we never actually finished the death of the lass in the
we didn't.
The crusher. No. That's when we went off in an odd little tangent.
But welcome to the show. You should know that.
Yeah. but that is the only major like horror scene we'd had before. Like we had obviously her inside of that. She got herself in that situation to get herself in like basically a giant juicer or whatever.
Yeah, which was bogging.
And like you said in the spoiler free, it starts going like he starts turning it on. Yeah. She thinks she's being clever by trapping himself inside. We all know like no,
you're cooked.
You're not. He starts turning it on. It kind of starts moving a little bit, and the sides start getting closer and closer to her. And we're both like, I think we're both saying in our head this. It kind of goes to black for a second as well. So you're like, oh, that's it. Like, we're about to get like we'll probably see the aftermath, but we won't see that. No. And then it suddenly like flicks back to her face like sideways, and just like viewer. And we get the proper crush, even like a slight eyeball comes towards the glass, and a proper. Yeah, we technically just it goes from her head to mush, but that's kind of what would happen.
It was,
there's not much more that you can show unless it goes super slow mo to like show off.
Slow in that one moment. But it was a great moment, and I was
puree, bitch.
Yeah, and I was thinking like, oh wow, like I'm pleased that they kept the 80 because I think they could have, and there are a lot of kills that happen like quite quickly, and there are there's body counts or there's people who die that are very much like nameless. Person. Like the taxi driver just gets an arrow through the fucking dome, but you don't really see it. It's kind of like...
It's like more about the blood splatter on the glass that you kind of see come suddenly.
And there's quite a few of those deaths in there. There's a drive-in scene later, and there's people, there's a couple of people who just get one slash and you're done, mate.
Well, I mean, because we've mainly got a couple of main set pieces. We've got a police station set piece, we've got a drive-in set piece, and then mainly it's the church after they've been attacked in the apartment. When they're both... We know that they're both like good, like on the spot because they're both like reacting pretty fast, doing things pretty quick. I mean, she's probably the one that's acting to us faster in some ways because Lob's a dildo. Yeah. Once they get out of that room, once they actually manage to like get past him, she's quick to like grab the belt off him. Yeah. Because they're a bit, and then they have the classic like lingering by the door, like there's going to be another kiss, and this kind of plays a couple of times through the film where you got the now we're finally going to kiss now, a quiet moment, and then it's quickly brought back to life. Oh shit, there's a serial killer.
We roll over and Mr. Mason Gooding is lying on top of Olivia Holt, and you're thinking, I wish that was me, and you're staring up into his handsome eyes, and they're about to kiss. And then the killer comes along. Yeah, they have those moments where
to break it up, to have that nice little like rom-com into like, oh yeah, we're in a horror film. Yeah, like to bring you back into the mind frame of those kind of parts. Like you do get an interesting bit that actually near the start, I guess, is that we do get the kind of a back like through news reports and stuff like that, which. Are shown fairly interestingly. They always look a little bit cheap when you do these kind of things.
That's why I was thinking. Bits, I think it showed the budget a little bit because it's a smaller budget film. I think mostly it's doing quite well because I think it just lines up that it's a rom-com horror around the time, so it's hitting that season.
And it gets to mainly focus on like two characters in smaller destinations that like little set areas that they can build up. So it works with like a smaller budget. They've obviously got it. But when you try to do these big, like, this news report, this like lots of actors, it always the actors are not really living up because they're like basically hired extras for like, you're hired for like to do say like 2/3 words of a news report. And they're all a bit like,
it's more the graphics for me.
Yeah,
the graphics always look a little bit like.
They look like they filmed a video and put it in the front of a PowerPoint.
They always look a little cheaper.
Someone's used that, whatever the shape art one you used to do when you were a kid. Like, look at that! I can turn it into a cool graffiti style. Yeah, it's kind of that. Or when they, especially to be honest, it was the one that always gets me is when they use real like news report, like actual ones. Yeah, and you're just sat there like, that's not what the BBC one looks like.
Yeah,
that's a shit. Like that's not the BBC. It doesn't just have BBC in the corner. It has a whole bunch of like that's terrible. But this one, the graphics and stuff just made, and also I think it's just kind of like they had one with like a professor who's like, he doesn't kill like this, he kills like this, and just the line delivery, I just didn't think was great. It was like it just doesn't like I don't know why like the backstory like was enough. Like they pretty much did it like quickly at the like when they just went he's been killing in lots of places. He's killed this, and this. And then for some reason it felt like it still told more news stories of different ones. And you're like, yeah, we got the gist.
We get the gist, man.
It's an interesting thing. He comes out on Valentine's Day and he basically just kills couples, and he kills lots of couples.
And
Not
then
that he doesn't kill
off.
other people that get in the way, but he pretty much hunts after couples. And it sets up enough of the idea that basically, you know, once he seems to set his mind on one, he goes after that couple.
Yeah.
And that's what we've got here. We've got the false couple where we know that they're actually like a real
They literally
couple,
met that day,
but
you know,
they share the kiss to like because they're trying to fake for the boyfriend.
Yeah, the ex.
And then after that, he's after them. The apartment kill happens. The taxi driver's killed. They're chased to like they're chased through like a building, but
like a botanical gardens.
Yeah, and he gets knocked out on the way through. And then she gets a kind of a fun one on a carousel.
I really liked that she ditched him. I really liked that
because she just went. Yeah, she went like at first they were doing a couple of things to be like, I'm going to help you, I'm going to help you. But to be fair, it looks like he's either been taken out fully or he's got like gone. So she's just like, well, I've got to go. Like, I'm not just hanging around.
But it's a good.
She also doesn't know him that well.
No, but it's a good character choice because you're expecting, and it happens later in the film. You're expecting her to be like, I'm gonna get him. I'm gonna defend this guy who's knocked out. Yeah. But it's a good character choice for her. Just have that self-preservation. Be like, nah, I'm fucking taking this opportunity. I'm going.
Yeah.
You know,
get out of here.
Get out.
And there's no. I was gonna say, like some people might be like, she ran away, like she's but
it's good.
It's like
keeps it fresh.
It's the way it is, like in those like again, and we've already seen her and him bash back and forth to try and like distract him. But at this point, he's down on the ground. There's not really, what's she going to do? Drag his body along while like, I'll get you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or again, she may. It's not even clear. She may even think he's basically dead.
He's cooked
because you know he looks like he's about to take him. And in a way, technically, she's the one thing that still actually... She may not be thinking in that way, but she is the thing that saves him, in a way, because, one, it's moving away, but also because the killer gets a different idea.
Yes.
Which kind of links into the next main set piece. But we get that carousel one when, like,
which is good.
We start hunting across and... You know, he's like slashing through the heads of the horses as she's like, he speeds it up so she like whacks into the ground. You get the old in between the leg chop kind of thing that she just dodges. And she's putting up a fairly good fight for someone who's like, he's got a ton of tools. He's got like little blades, he's got machete blades, he's got knives, he's got guns. They're all set up. Like he's got plenty. He's got a whole jacket.
He's got
basically,
like a utility
the best
belt,
of it. And he's got these. Then he's also got these leather.
He's got this leather ass.
He's got this leather chat. Yeah, he's got like these leather ones with the little belt where it's just like on top you're like army commando, at the bottom you're like kinky sex.
Yeah, you're like kinky. You're fucking. You know, it's odd.
It's a weird combination. Like you're like that, and then the mask, obviously, which is a cool. It's a cool mask.
Cool mask.
Whenever we get to see the killer's point of view is quite cool because obviously you get the two heart eyes which then turn into like one heart kind of thing.
Yeah, and then later we get the
night vision version, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
and that's into the
second act.
That's into the kind of second where we get Mason character. We get Mason Gooding's character, whoever he is. He gets O.J. Simpson.
He gets O.J. Simpson.
He gets arrested like O.J. Simpson. He gets arrested.
If the glove don't fit, you must acquit. That's what I found that line very on the nose. You know, but yeah, they kind of then go into.
He's been set up. He's
set up.
When he was knocked out, you know, we think that there's a good chance, you know. I was thinking, she saved him because the killer wants to chase her and he can come back for the knocked out guy. When actually they took the opportunity to basically lay him on the ground, knocked out, but still has the mask next to him and the little crossbow that they've got.
Yeah, and they do a couple of red herrings throughout the film.
Yeah,
and I think I thought the red herrings were pretty well done because there are moments where I was like, particularly in the first act, I was kind of like, I think it could be, Mason Gooding. Yeah. And then there was,
he's very like set up with the whole like, I'm only in town for today.
I love.
And the heart eyes is like, we've already heard that goes from like city to city and normally stays for the one Valentine's Day and then disappears to another city.
But then the detective, I thought the detective was kind of like the second act red herring. And there's another one.
So Jordana Brewster's character is very... Because she's very quick at the beginning, was my first... Like, the very first scene when we see it go inside of the bloody gory tank of the remains of the one girl... where they find the JS ring, where and he's called J something. Whatever
say
it was.
Jay Slater
And she,
Jay Swinger, Jay Slinger.
But she's very quick to be like it could be a woman, and she's very kind of like
she's like
possessive about guys and stuff, and we get a weird. In this station, especially, we get when she's like almost coming on to him. She's like, "Oh, so you're single?" Suddenly, she like sits down. She's like, well, while you're chained up, I might just rape you.
Look at my breasts.
And so you've got a few different characters. And we do get an oddly kind of timed random IT guy who I at the time was like, this is a weirdly placed kind of scene.
Yeah,
which does come back. So you've got those kind of nice little setups. I mean, the police station scenes. We've got obviously the interrogation, which is interesting. And we know that I think you know that he's coming. The heart you're like. He's strapped to a table, so that's already got a setup. Yeah. She's really like paranoid as to what is going on, rightly so. She has just almost been murdered, and you've got some few like flares of like humour between like her coming on to him and also the lady behind the desk, like like joke parts. But once he's actually in the building, we get that night vision scene, which I think is quite cool. She's already set up with the whole. She's carrying the flag around. And like she's going towards the closet while all the officers in this oddly, I mean, the setup is also there. So there's oddly abandoned. It's oddly quiet. Station. Yeah. It seems like the only two detectives, and then there's one behind the counter, and that's it. Nobody else is here. Apparently,
you don't need anybody else.
And she points out that this is an oddly, weirdly like, where is everyone?
Yeah.
And as she's working towards, but then we get this like little part with the spike on the end of the American flag played nicely when Hot Eyes actually appears and completely like right through the back of the officer behind the desk. We get her like lifted in the air with the American flag as like her body slightly slides through the flag kind of thing.
Yeah.
That was I thought that was quite a standard one. I thought that Devon Sawyer's one was a bit more like I got the we get him in there and he's kind of coming across quite strong to the other Jordana Brewster's character.
Yeah, he's an odd character.
He comes on a little bit like he's like, I'm basically in love.
I will make love to you.
But
I will be the one to make.
I'm also a bit of a trash guy at the same time. And he gets a nice slicing through the nuts.
Sliced in the nut.
And then we get a kind of slightly like we get more of the off-screen blood splatter across his photo kind of thing. His just feels so quick. He feels like he's there and doesn't really get much to do in general. Of
his whole kind of performance, unfortunately. It feels like he's... I thought when I heard he was in it that he was going to be fleshed out more. I thought he'd be...
He seemed prime candidate. I was like, I didn't know if this... And this is the hard... When you're watching it, you don't know if this is a... Is this a who's behind the mask? Or is this just a... We stop the guy and he disappears at the end? Kind of, you know what I mean? Like, he'll be back again, Heart Eyes isn't done. Or is it like a cult of Heart Eyes? Like, is that kind of, so you don't know what's out, but Devon Sawyer in this seems like a perfect, like, you're already suspecting of it, I think, purely because we've got someone with a somewhat horror legacy. He seems primed and he seems like the kind of dirtbag guy, like he could be this kind of worn down dude that's like into that. But sadly, he doesn't really get enough to. Once you actually get to see the character, you're like, it's not really enough to him to. No, he's not anything more than a fodder.
Yeah, which is a shame, really.
Yeah, I think he could have done more. It was too bad, like for his character. I liked the behind the glass scene when she's in.
That was cool.
And he's stuck inside. We get Heart Eyes comes into the room, and I thought the only way that Jay is getting out of that scene is by like basically making him cut through.
That's what I thought.
So I was like, he's going to have to angle it. This is the only way he's getting around. She was on the other side of the glass, but he thinks she's abandoned him again. Yeah. But no, it's really cool when she starts shooting through the glass.
Yeah.
When you get that at first, it's almost like you don't notice this, like what just happened. There's like bump, and then you start seeing the holes start to appear. Yeah. I mean, as he says, like the shots are not on point at all. They are literally like all over the place.
Which at one point made me think, oh, is that a red herring?
Yeah.
Is she
going to turn out?
Is she in on this? Yeah. Because
she doesn't want to take out Heart Eyes.
She doesn't want to take out Heart Eyes.
And she's the one that's not so much a love at heart kind of person.
Yeah.
She seems actively against it kind of thing.
Yeah, so I was thinking, is that a little one there? Oh, we got to get that they survive, and then she fucking offs him.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, yeah, that's the bit, like, to us, that might have been more interesting. Like, if we're going to take it angle. But it doesn't play into the rom-com quite as well, I guess, at the end. Yeah.
And then I kind of try to think of some of the other scenes, because I don't think we need to go through the whole thing, but
this mainly does kind of this build to the driving is the main bit.
What I did like is the scene where they get into the they're kind of working their way through this drive through. Heart Eyes is chasing them, and they go into the van where the two like stoners are just banging, you know.
Yeah.
And I love that we
have this like heart to heart moment where they're like actually letting go and letting the other one in. Yeah,
you know, which you have in rom-coms of like my mum, they were the perfect couple, and then my dad died, and then
it broke our family.
They broke our family. Well, I really into love because my parents hated each other. You know, they were always fighting, and then in the background you just hear this fucking guy on the job. You know, I love that.
Like,
I thought it was
you
so
get
funny.
so many and to be fair, I was sat there the whole time. Like when
you were beaten off, you were beaten off. I heard.
You're listening to all the sounds, and to be fair, they go well in for the sounds, because if you're listening to the sounds, you're like. That sounds like nuts.
That's like nuts.
That's clapping against that.
That's those nuts.
You know, but the whole time, I think at the same time, you're listening to what they're saying, their whole like thing, but there's this little like humour at the same time that nicely plays in the background, while also being like,
are they dying?
Is this like them that because they're squealing because they're getting the life? Like, part of me was expecting a head to drop in.
That's
in
what I was
between
thinking.
them. You know what I mean, or something like that, or suddenly like a blood splatter like hits across the whole thing. And they're like, oh shit, that wasn't. Yeah. You know, but it actually it played out better than that, I think, because they actually let the whole sex thing actually like play out when they put their head up and go, guys. Like, you're way too loud now. You're thinking that you're going to see Heart Eyes already fucking smashing them apart. But they're actually like literally like mid penetration.
Yeah, he's not, that dude's fucking going for it, isn't he? You know?
They're literally all going for it, which is even more fun when Heart Eyes, you just see him sitting like, I can hear the sex.
I can hear him.
He's like, my sex radar.
I can smell it.
Yeah, he literally like opens those doors.
These two crusty hippies fucking. Yeah,
and it's literally like shoves that bar through the back of his head, and like, it's really cool. And then pulls her head down and literally onto it as well, and then lifts her back up. So we get a classic.
We get the through the,
old
mouth.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, like the old through the. And that's what I mean. The gore goes full in on this scene. Like,
which is great.
And I think the only thing that somewhat, and we do get a little bit more of it after this, is when Heart Eyes is walking in between all those couples. Like, we only get like mainly like one where he like stabs a guy that gets like talks to him. Kind of thing. But I'm not gonna like. Part of me really wanted to see Heart Eyes just walking through and just literally like slicing for it. Because it felt like it was set up for that. Like it felt like it's set up to just like anyone who's in his way just starts getting fucking macheted through the crowd. Kind of.
And it happened a little bit. I think
it does afterwards. There's more people,
but it felt
there's
like
people going hysterical and stuff like that. And that was the only one thing in my head going like, I feel like this is the one part when you could have gone harder on this. You could have had people backing up their cars, backing over people, and again, it could, absolutely budgetary and stuff like that. But or just him going through the crowd, just slicing that. You get a couple of thrown blades and you get a couple of people dropping. Yeah. But it seemed like literally, like it would have been kind of fun to even if it was just him going to car and you get the blood splatter on the cars as you see him literally going by and going.
Yeah, and just take
like
it
slice one at the side through each of the cars. You get like the kind of that he's drawn, like the Heart Eyes killer is drawn in, like when he's like fucking with one couple, like like two field males in the car, and he's like dragging it across. So they seem to be getting a thrill out of the terror that they're creating, kind of thing. Yeah. But that was the only one bit when I was like, I would like you're going to go real hard on this, because there was a little bit of with the machete where I was like, I'm getting some Jason vibes. I'm getting some proper, and I want a bit more of this. I want a bit more.
Lean into it,
because people were like going hysterical. A couple of people like fell down and stuff. So I guess it just in my head I was thinking we could have had some proper like nasty,
leaned into it a little bit more.
trampling on people getting knocked down, people starting things.
Like chaos, you know.
I was even expecting, to be honest, the actual screen that was set up to come into it a little bit more. I thought they were going to try to...
Shadows.
When they were working through the crowd, I thought they were going to try to get to the front in order to tell people that he's coming. And then we were going to get a massacre, basically like, here I come. Yeah. You know, instead we got here I come in a different way.
Yeah, because somebody else, some crusty hippie just fucking on the job.
Which I enjoyed that bit as equally as, you know. And so then we get we get the whole like, we're together on this now. We've had our emotional moment. Yeah. So now we need to do this. So they go back in, her with her metal straw, and him, he goes, I do like they go back to the dirty hippies. To the dirty hippies. The dead dirty hippies. And like, we have to do this together to pull the iron bar out of his throat.
Yeah, that was great.
In this really like, almost like they're taking like sword in the stone, like, we have to do this together, babe. Yeah. Like pulling it out, and you're just
hands interlocked, you know.
And then you obviously get the, you know, and you get the. I obviously got the strong feeling straight away that this was not the actual, because it felt far too easy. Yeah. You know, they take him out, they give him a good beating, she gives him a good smashing across the head. You know, tries to get him with the bar, but doesn't get him. She gives a smash across the head with the... I couldn't actually work out what she grabbed. She grabs something heavy, smashes it. We get the really cool where the blood comes through the heart. Yeah. You know, that's a really nice effect. And then we get the pull off the mask, and we get like, oh, I don't know who that is. Yeah. Which in one way for me was like, oh, actually, you know what? You know, I know it might seem a little bit, you know, disappointing to some who were expecting a big reveal, but to me I was like, yeah, I mean, this is what's going to happen most of the time. You're be like, I don't know who the fuck this dude is.
Yeah, I don't know this.
I don't know who you are. Like, so in one mind I was like, is this a fake out, or is this like is this the end? Nah, you know, I was thinking too much. People will be too disappointed by that. And I was like, for me, I was okay with it as long as the rom-com element had finished it off after this. But then you're like, we're not actually getting together. So you're like, oh, it's not over.
As soon as, you know, she was the female detective, Joanna Brewster, was like, I'll take you back to your hotel. I was like, oh, will you? Yeah. Will you? Person who strangely didn't die in the police station, who was not injured. Oh, you will. And I was like, it's obviously her.
The one who we didn't really see get like badly, like, or even hurt really by far eyes. You're like, oh yeah, because to be fair, I was there the whole time. I forgot what even happened to her in the police station. I was nothing. But that's what I mean.
She saw her eyes.
Yeah, that's why I was like. But that's why she seemed so obvious at that point, because it was like, she didn't even look like she got, like, there was no like indication it cut away from her. So I was like, that was the only part that in my head was like, if we're following this up, we've left the big her story, and then she appears, and then you're like, okay, well, you're obviously taking it somewhere else. You're taking somewhere away. Unless we're about to change our rom-com thing into, we're really not getting together, but he's off banging this lass.
He's fucking
Unless if we've got a sudden scene of him just banging her and being like,
fucking plopping away.
Yeah, and we're just like, this is the rom-com when they don't end up happily ever after.
Oh, and it's just a 10-minute scene of him going to town, and you're just like, okay. And then he nuts, and then the credits roll, and you're like, oh, okay, that was an ending.
That's an ending.
He just comes at her. That's the ending.
Instead, we get the old. We get the oddly like awkward. There's an awkward humour that does run through it. I'm just trying to stay out. I'm nutting.
I'm just imagining, you know, the scene in It's Always Sunny with Dennis Reynolds. Nuts.
Oh yeah.
And that hippie. And then it's like he's like, oh, I imagine that of Cuba Gooding. His dad
just suddenly appears.
His dad just comes in and starts plowing, and then it just nuts. It's a shot of his face.
I'm sure that Cuba Gooding would plow.
I'm sure. I don't doubt he would. Don't doubt he would. And then it just cuts to his face, and then the credits roll, and everyone's like, "What the fuck? What the fuck was that? Why did I just watch?
This is the ending.
Why did his dad just swoop in and start pounding? Like,
I mean,
what is this film?
We know I mean, everyone who's listening to this knows they would have enjoyed that ending in some way.
In some way,
it would have been an oddly like what's happened, but it would be like a I weirdly enjoyed that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You thought Nosferatu was going to have the most weird ending of the year. Nah, it's Cuba Gooding Jr. just banging in a film where he didn't even star for 99% of the film.
Yeah, he's just banging.
Just his son let him in.
His son let him in, and he said, "I'll show you how it's done, son." It's tense. Yes. So
I was saying about the humour, which is like, because you like this film has like kind of odd, like at times like odd, like awkward kind of like, that's weird. Why did you make that choice? You even get the ambulance worker who's got the weird like, you guys are celebrities now, and then she just kind of awkwardly hangs about for a second, and then she comes back to take the blanket. It's like, I've got to go, like get it off the thing, and you're left in those kind of weird like, what is going on here? And then we get a little bit of a, you know, the classic like, oh, what have I done moments. Oh no, I should have done. We talk to the best friend on the phone again when I was expecting the reveal of who's the sugar daddy.
Yes.
Because it even was getting wider with the shot as she was talking. So I was like, it seems he's next to you in that car. Reveal to me who is the sugar daddy.
Yeah. Alan Sugar.
It's being saved for the sequel when Sugar Daddy is the leader of the cult.
Yeah, that's it.
Or something like that. But yeah, we get the whole what should we do, and we get the classic, oh, I need to run to the airport, you know, go to the airport, scream out your name, even though there is no indication that he's outside, or that he's in the airport. Like, she says it before she notices someone who looks like it, by the way, before you go like, oh wait, there was a guy who looks like, no. She gets out the cab and like screams, which I guess is just, again, taking the piss out of the classic.
The rom-com.
Like, they just seem to run through the airport screaming. It's like, woman, he's all the way at the end of the airport. You know this, why you're running through the whole airport. I'm pretty sure it might even be a crime in some places.
Yeah, maybe. And he got here early, you know. He's checked in, he's on the other, he's gone through. Like,
gives someone an awkward hug, you know. Yeah. But what we really know is he never even made it anywhere near.
Of course he didn't.
It was also, the time framing of this was oddly weird as well, because he said he was going back to his hotel to have like food and stuff like that. And then she like lies around, has a shower, then lies down on the sofa and says this. In that time, she assumed that he just gave up and just went to the airport.
Yeah.
Like, he's over her. He's like,
I'm just going home.
I'm just going home. I was going to go to sleep, but no, I'm just going to go home. Also, I'm going to go to my friend's wedding.
I did nothing for your company either.
Yeah,
I just turned up.
I literally. I mean, how weird is that?
Tried to shag the employee.
I mean, the aspect of him is a weird one anyway. It's like, we're going to have a guy come in for literally one day. He's not going to be in the office because he goes out to do yoga when he's only apparently been in for 10 minutes. But apparently he's going to save our company in one day.
He will save our company.
And then he's gonna offer you to go out to thing, and he's leaving. He's going.
He's going.
It's like, if I was the woman who hired him, I'd be like,
what did I pay him for?
What the fuck did I pay him for?
Yeah.
He's probably charging me for these meals.
For his champagne.
All this goddamn champagne that he ordered. You know,
he wasted.
He charged me for yoga.
Yeah.
He charged me for fucking 1 million Uber rides around the city. He's charging me for the funeral of the Uber driver.
Yeah.
And he gave me fucking nothing.
And his dad come on the bed sheets of the hotel that we booked him at.
Had to pay for the salary of Cuba Gooding Jr.
Cuba Gooding Jr. £2, you know, like what is
happening here?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's an odd like it's one of those bits where I'm like, when I watched it, I was like, I understand exactly what you're skewing here. He gets the whole, she like hugs the wrong guy and stuff like that. I was like, I understand what you're skewing and stuff like that.
Humorous.
And then we get a phone call, and now we're into the true final act. And this is the part when it goes from skewering the idea of like a Scream kind of idea, I guess, mixed with like a rom-com, you know, we're into that. And into the part that's always the divisive part of a Scream film.
Which we
where
spoke
it's the
about,
reveal.
It's the reveal, man.
Yeah, it's the reveal where it's like... I mean, I guess part of this is because I think they set up quite an interesting idea and kind of lore with the whole heart eyes killing on, you know, murdering. And I actually quite like the idea. So I guess the only thing for me, part of it, is that I actually really did not want it to go into, oh, who's the killer? Because I feel like it worked better as it just stays an ominous kind of question than it does as like a, here's the who it is kind of thing. Because they already implied the Heart Eyes killer moves around the city all around, it made more sense for it to be like, you wouldn't even know who it was if we took the mask off anyway, so it doesn't actually matter. But in the scene, we get obviously straight away the play off of the thing. And we get a humorous play on it, I guess, start with, which is funny for a moment until it's like, well, that was the joke, but actually you're actually doing this.
Yeah, I'm still unsure on if I enjoyed it. Like you said, it's the problem with the
I like
reveal.
some of the aftermath. That's somewhat fun. But the weird thing for me is that this is the part when the film goes from kind of this weird blend of horror rom-com to suddenly just feeling like a standard, not so much about the rom-com anymore, we're just doing a standard Scream ending at this point. We're now also a lot more serious than we have been the rest of the film. Tonally, it feels very like we're going very like fully into this. And I don't know why, it just didn't feel like it blended nicely. Like, because if you look at the previous scene, like when they're funnily like pulling out the bloody iron out of the bloke's neck, and you know they're killing them together, but there's still kind of humour and jokes there. But that all dies in this final bit. Like, there's none of that really in this final bit, outside of a few like, you know, kind of deaths that kind of have a little bit of a wink. Apart from the reveal when we realise it was Ian, the IT guy.
David, the IT guy.
Was it David? I thought
it was David, the IT guy.
Okay.
And they're like...
Well, she doesn't even remember who he is.
Yeah, and
which plays into that whole, like, sometimes you have that reveal and you're like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah.
You were that one guy that appeared for, like, 1 minute in the scene earlier on. And so that joke kind of, like, lands in a way for people that are in the know of it, of like, yeah, sometimes it makes no sense who these people are. And things like that, you know. And you've got, obviously, I didn't mention, but obviously Mason.
You're Roy.
He's
from,
tied up.
Yeah, it's Roy from, you know, Chapter 5, Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
Like, you're just you're a paramedic who appeared in like one scene, and your illegitimate son was killed. Like, what? Like, okay, but yeah, I don't know. I feel very much like you do. I feel almost like I want to get to these films, and I want it to be like just before they take the mask off, there's a problem with the projector, and they're like, sorry lads, you're not going to be able to finish the film. And I'm like, well, I can try and figure out who it is. Because, you know, they're like, it's David, and then they say, I think it's Eli who was the guy in the drive-in, and then they're like, you were a couple, and then he's like, no, throuple. And then it reveals that Jordana Brewster was one of the killers. And I kind of feel like...
I mean, the one that by that point seemed quite obvious to be the killer.
It was her.
So it's kind of like you make fun of the idea of these films, and then straight away you become it.
Yeah.
Because when she's then revealed to also be one of them, it's like, so you just kind of... You've just skewered it, and then
done it.
You've done it.
And done it in seriousness.
Yeah, and you've done it in a way that feels like, but it feels now like exactly like a end of like a Scream, you know.
Yeah.
Where we're like, okay, now we're gonna hear their thing, and now we're gonna have a fight, and I don't know. It just suddenly made me feel like, and I've got I like Scream films. I like all the Scream films.
We know you.
And I've got no problem, and I've most of the time got no problem, because I feel like it's a hard thing to ever pull off, and they're stuck in that. They can't suddenly change their mind now and go like, we're not going to be that kind of horror film anymore.
Yeah,
it's what's come expected. And to be fair, it's the one reason that people probably still go back to that franchise, is because at least the first time you watch it, it's like, what the fuck's going to happen here? You know what I mean? Like,
you have, and you go into it knowing.
And it's part of the fun. It was just weird with this one. I guess I didn't feel necessarily like it actually needed to be that. It didn't need to be that type of the slasher, like where it has to have. It could have been just been this is an anonymous killer. This is more of a Jason-y kind of like.
I don't know.
But it didn't have to. I just more mean I didn't need to know who it was, or it could have just been revealed that basically it's a whole cult of heart eyes killer. Like, that's why they're in different cities, because it's never the same kind of one. We're actually like a whole like group, you know that. But that's a lot of exposition that you certainly don't need in the last 15 minutes of a film.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's almost to a point, and maybe this is just for my own like personal kind of expectations or my own personal satisfaction, but I feel like they're almost damned if they do, and they're damned if they don't. Yeah. Like, if I'm being honest, the only Screams that I've been like, that's a good twist on who it is, are for me, and I may get hate for this, are the first one and the fourth one. I don't like 2. 3's dog shit. 4's great. 4 works really well for me. 5,
that one plays the expectations really well.
Yeah, that plays the expectations well. 5 wasn't great. 6 was a bit dog shit. And I'm talking strictly about the reveal.
The reveal. The rest of the film
I really enjoy.
Yeah.
But it's that thing of like, I don't know how to end it without it being cliched and without leaning into what you're trying to parody. Because I was kind of okay, I liked when they revealed and it was David, and you were like, oh, it is that guy who's just like forgotten, and it is that thing of, oh, it's just some fucking dude who you walk past and you're just like, oh, I don't remember them at all. But then the problem again with sticking with the David character then being the killer is that you've got almost no, and this is the same problem with the screen, you've got no connection to them, and when you hear them, you then don't want to hear them explain why they're the killer, because you're like, who gives a fuck? You're just some random fucking shoot the dude and we're done. But then they could have leaned into that a little bit. They could, because I liked when he revealed himself, and she was like, who are you? And I quite like that.
Which is why the only thing in my head when he was revealed at the time was like the only one that would be like interesting and therefore kind of sets up the possibility of more of a Heart Eyes killer.
Yeah.
Is the idea that he's just like, I'm just a dude that's just part of
a network.
We do this every Valentine.
Yeah.
Do you think we're the only ones that are the love-struck killers and stuff like that?
Yeah.
We're just one of many. Like, you can kill me, but there'll be several more heads that grow, kind of thing. You're never going to get rid of them, kind of thing. You're on their list, whatever. Like that kind of more like over-looming kind of like, is this over kind of thing. And it's not the whole like, the rest of it plays out as you'd expect. It's
good, but it's gory good time,
Yeah, it's fine. I like the bit when he shoves the blade and it pops through David's eye. That's fun. And the fights back and forth. She goes to shoot. She shoots through his shoulder to get into the stomach of thing. Which you think was like a planned thing, and then she reveals that actually I was off from where
which is
she was just aiming for that. She was actually just aiming for her, and just shot. The idea of handing her a gun and making her choose between herself and Thing, and I feel like everyone in the audience would have been like, "You're just going to shoot one of them in the head, right?
Yeah,
you're just going to shoot one of them, And then it plays into the whole that she couldn't shoot earlier.
Yeah,
so the fact that she even gets a bullet into the other into the detective is like pretty good. That whole fight, and I like the whole that they joke about the St. Valentine taking the heads and stuff like that, and we get that final battle which ends with her getting the neck through the actual, and we literally stand on it until the tendons start to rip from the neck, and
that was really cool.
That those bits are all really cool and all nicely play within the in the genre of more of the the gorier version of like a Scream style kind of thing. Yeah, but and that's all good. Even like I liked him getting kind of covered in wax when all the wax started to melt upon him and stuff like that. But it's the one part that's just it's always hard to pull it off, I think, and it just kind of suddenly. It just for me it just was the only part where it suddenly felt like we're a bit too tonally like really like overly serious and overly exposition-y for a film that has been quite light on its feet, and not overly like too bothered about even when they're doing the whole talk about the relationship and stuff, you've got the humour of the banging and the banging. You know what I mean? This is the only time when it feels like we actually have to listen to someone do a large amount of exposition, which is what kind of bogs them down. Yeah. And to be honest, most of the time, like say, looking back to the Scream thing, is most of the time the worst ones of those are the ones when you're like, why are you still fucking talking? Seriously, let's just get on with this. We know what's going on. Let's move past this and get on with get on what's going to happen here. Let's not like long it out. Yeah,
you don't need to do a fucking mustache twizzling.
And then, of course, we get the happy kind of ending, which I wasn't 100% sure was going to be a fully happy ending, because we get the whole like 1 year later, and she's decided to become a doctor again. We never mentioned that before, but that's what she wanted to be. She doesn't like blood. Oh, that actually, I do like the one implied joke, like when he shoves the blade, the machete through his chest at the drive-in. Yes. And then like he does like the thrust, and then she's like, you got it in my mouth, which is an absolute cum joke. Oh yeah, it's 100%. She's like, she like reacts like because just like, you got it in my mouth, and then she throws that all over. Yeah. What we find out to be Eli's Heart Eyes dead body.
That was great,
and that was really funny. But they return to the drive-in. you know, and they do the whole like, they're going to get married. No, I'm going to move into the house. Oh no, actually, I'm going to propose to you. And this whole romantic, but because they're in the open top car, I'm not going to lie. Part of my mind went a bit like, I know what you did last summer or something like that. You know, where it's suddenly pulled under the, you know, under the bed, like in that one. Like this one, the kind of like, who's that kind of thing, or one of them's locked off, just to give it that kind of. We're still a horror film.
Yeah, that's what I think was going to happen as well.
But I like the fact that it goes with the fact that this was a rom-com as well, and it would be completely unsatisfying to have a whole rom-com and then be like, oh, by the way, he died.
He dies.
Which is actually a lot of rom-coms actually have the whole we fell in love and then you died, and then like that was a very sad, weepy ending of the film. But this was more of the light-hearted, the light-hearted Matthew McConaughey style. Not the kind of like, oh my god, feel the grief of my love that has been lost. It's not like Terms of Endearment, like dying of cancer.
Yeah,
I'm back on that again. But yeah, it's still fun, and I think that part again backs up the idea of what I said the whole time is this is a fun date movie that I think most people would enjoy. You know, I'm not banging out. I'm saying like it probably sticks well within that maybe 3.5 kind of star kind of range.
I think that's kind of where it is.
But it's exactly what it like should be. It's not like a masterstroke. It's not trying to reinvent the wheel.
No.
It's just trying to play in, but it plays a lot better than a lot of these genre mashing ones where, you know, quite often they're eschewing one single film. This is eschewing more of the whole genre of different styles, you know. Instead of like what we said with It's a Wonderful Knife, for instance, was the fact that it's very niche because in some ways you had to really know that film in order to get a lot of it. And if you didn't, I know that's a classic for a lot of people to see, but if you didn't get a lot of that stuff, it just didn't really play as well.
And your mind is quite
you know. Whereas with this one, I think it's relatable to anyone who's ever seen basically Hugh Grant star in a film.
If you haven't seen a Hugh Grant film, then it might not be for you. But yeah, I think a lot of it was. I think what else also happened was with this that helped the premise, and it was that the two mains, Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding, they did a lot of the legwork, which when you do get smaller budget films, the mains do that. But they had great chemistry, and they both did really well with what they were given. You know, a lot of the jokes landed, a lot of the humour landed between them. It was like you said earlier. It was like mainly the stuff surrounding them that is when I don't want to say the wheels came off because I don't think it was that level of film. But there, you know, some of the humour didn't quite land as much, or some of the narrative choices weren't kind of done as well. When it was just focusing more on them, it was kind of better. But I mean, I'd recommend.
They're both very good. I'd happily see them. I'm almost surprised that Mason Gooding's. I don't really think he'd done like rom-coms, but he seems like the perfect male lead. Like, where's his leading man roles? He seems like he should be breaking out. He seems a natural fit, doesn't he? Yeah, he seems like he should be breaking out a bit more than I've seen him breaking out. I've mainly only seen him in like horror kind of films. Yeah. Although we did say about the budget, by the way, and it did actually have an 18 million budget, so it actually wasn't that low. That's only a few million off of the last few Scream films. So it's actually quite bad. Yes, it's actually quite high. So it's actually surprising in some ways they didn't go more fully in with it at times.
Maybe it's the marketing that they didn't pick up on.
Yeah, I mean, I will say about the marketing, to be fair, this is a film that literally I had no idea existed until about a month ago, to be fair. When we brought it up and things like that, I hadn't seen anything for it. I don't think I had barely heard anything about Heart Eyes, and then suddenly it was there. So I do think that maybe a little bit was like, you know, for this film that was coming up to be a Valentine's Day like kind of release or week before Valentine's, that the only thing that may have let it down at some points is the fact that a lot of people didn't even know it was coming. Coming edition.
The Come edition. Yeah, I mean, I'd recommend people go and see it. I don't know how much longer it's got to be in cinemas. And I think, you know, it's always good to support horror movies. Go and check them out. But also something that isn't part of a franchise.
And it's trying to be something at least.
Trying to be something a little bit new and different.
And it has a killer that I would happily watch other things with that killer, but you know, that's just the thing. It kind of corners itself off. Like, it kind of feels like an end. Like it's done kind of thing. It doesn't feel like we've got more to go about, which is fine. If it's one-off, then it's one-off. But we're always looking for a new slasher, like
we are.
Someone to start a new, like, more slasher franchise that isn't one that's over the top and grotesque, like Terrifier.
There's something else, you know. Anything else to say on this, my friend, or are we gonna send
that
them
is
off?
all. You send us off in classic style.
Of course, in bumbling fool fashion.
That ball slapping good time.
We always deliver a ball slapping good time. You know that. So why not slap your balls along and hit that subscribe button and leave us a lovely review. If you've seen Heart Eyes, come and let us know what you thought of it. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at CMTH Podcast. And obviously, as always, Valentine's been and gone. But just keep this in mind for next year, because there could be a slasher who is out there looking for couples to kill. So if you're gonna get freaky, do it indoors. Do it, in the comfort of your own bedroom. Don't be fucking outside. Don't be doing anything. Don't be doing any of that. Stay off the streets on Valentine's Day. Just fuck indoors. See you next week.
Use protection.
Or pull out.
Spay and neuter your pets.
Spay and neuter your pets. Or if you feel real freaky, get a hot knife and a fork and spay and neuter yourself.
A vasectomy.
Yes, give yourself a vasectomy
At home.
and it'll be fine.
Everyone's got a kink.
We will see you next week. Take care. Bye bye.